Previously on the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy.
Holograms. Here at the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, we aren't normally interested in holograms unless they're preceded by the words Jim and the. But for the second time, hold on, isn't this a previously on?
Time, Josh, is an illusion. Podcast time, doubly so.
Okay, this once we'll make an exception, because it turns out that sometime in the mid-1980s, around the time that Jim and the Holograms aired, NASA was plotting nothing less than total world domination. The name of the scheme was Project Bluebeam, and it would have meant the end of all that we hold dear if it had actually happened. Where Jerrica Benton used holograms as a force for good, strutting her stuff as a luminally enhanced rock star, NASA supposedly planned to use them.
That's holograms, not GM and her bandmates.
Yes, NASA planned to use them as a tool to impersonate a global divinity, enslave the population, and usher in our good friend, the New World Order.
And that's the Illuminati-affiliated group, not the band of a similar name.
So, let's take a look at an alternative future so bright we'd have had to have worn shades as we delve into the mysteries of the hologrammatic holocaust that was, will be, or would have been Project Bluebeam. Along the way, we'll act science fictional and possibly detour into the current state of hologrammatic entertainment as we admit that neither of us actually watched the Jim and the Holograms reboot that came out a decade ago.
10 years, but has time passed us by?
And not pleasantly. Not pleasantly at all. But enough about how the sands of time have punished us for our many sins, because it's showtime, Synergy!
You know, I prefer the Misfits. Their songs are better.
You son of a bitch. The Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, brought to you today by Josh Edison and M. Dentith. Hello and welcome to the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy. Chilling in Auckland, New Zealand, I am Josh Edison, and sweltering in Guangzhou, China, they are Dr. M. R. X. Dentith.
Hello!
So that's differing hemispheres for you.
Yeah, so it's 28.5 degrees Celsius in the room I'm recording in. It is 32 degrees Celsius outside. We have the air conditioning on in the living room, which is struggling to get the temperature of the apartment down to about 26 degrees. So things are hot, but luckily not humid. The one thing the air conditioning unit is doing is stripping the moisture from the air. So I'm hot, but I'm not sweatily hot. And I'm sure all of the listeners of the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy really needed to know that.
Yes, no, I think that's important. I think they'll be comforted knowing that it's not a sweaty heat that's coming through in your voice. It's merely dry, parched dehydration.
Yes, the kind of thing that will preserve me should I die during the recording of this podcast due to heat stroke.
Oh well, let's see if that happens. I guess we should get into it quickly then, before you expire from some combination of dehydration and or bursting into flames.
That seems like a great idea. Let's go back to the past and talk about the future.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so as that cunningly repurposed intro from our episode of more than 10 years ago said, we're going to be talking about Project Bluebeam, because as you recall last week when we were looking to see if there were any new conspiracy theories out there, we didn't really find any, did we? There are one or two, I think, I hadn't heard before.
But a lot of what we saw was simply rehashed theories we've talked about on this podcast in the past. But the one which tickled our fancy, largely because we knew the name but had forgotten the content thereof, was Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam.
Should say you are in China, mixing up your L's and R's could be seen as some sort of racist pastiche. So take note of that.
Yes, precisely.
But you're right. but you're right. Yeah, someone actually mentioned in this, the year of our Lord 2026, Project Bluebeam, and we talked about it in an episode in May of 2015. So
And
actually,
even
11
when
years.
we were talking about it in 2015, we were kind of 10 years, actually 20 years beyond when it was actually particularly popular. So
Yeah,
we talked about it late, and now we're talking about it even later.
because the thing is, we thought, oh, yeah, it was funny seeing the name come up in a list of conspiracy theories that was fairly recent, but it turns out it never really went away. It's still kicking. Um, but maybe we'll leave the current state of it for a little bit later on and just talk about the stuff that we talked about 11 years ago, really. So tell me, what is/was Project Bluebeam?
Well, Josh, it's a four-pronged thesis, and explaining exactly how it works is complicated. So let's talk about the person who discovered or originated Project Bluebeam first. Because the work that we know of as Project Bluebeam, and I'm now suddenly aware that every time I'm trying to say the name of this particular project, that I really want to say project, and I don't
Hmm.
know why, but it's really, really tempting to go back and talk about Project Bluebeam. So the person who originated or discovered, and I think
Or
this is an
made up.
important distinction we'll talk about later
Hmm.
on in the episode, was a Canadian, specifically Quebecois journalist by the name of Serge Monash. And is it Monash? No, Monast?
With a
Monast?
T. Yes, I
Yeah,
don't know. It's
Monast.
French, so you can probably just drop off a couple of
Well,
consonants and
that
you'll be
yeah, that was
fine.
what I was thinking because it also could be Sergei Monash,
Serge
which
Monard,
yeah,
Monas. Yeah, I don't
precisely.
know.
And of course, you get to the difficulties of French pronunciation versus Quebecois pronunciation are, of
Indeed.
course, quite different, as I've discovered by meeting French people who make fun of Quebecois people in China. But that is another matter which will
Mm.
not come up at another time.
But
Anyway, Sergei is mostly known to the world for his work on Project Bluebeam, a NASA led conspiracy, and associated other conspiracy theories, such as work on Masonic conspiracy theories and New World Order conspiracy theories. For the pop culture minded person, he is assumed or taken to be the model for the character Mel Gibson played in the 1997 film Conspiracy Theory.
yes, that's a claim. I don't know how much truth there is to the claim, but people have made a connection between the two because yeah, conspiracy theory came out in 1997. This guy's book Project Bluebeam was first presented in 1994. So I mean they're of the same time. Um, but so he wrote this book, and in fact, the text of the book is available on the Internet Archive, and I had a quick flip through it, and it seems to be sort of a collection of articles that he had written and sort of had published in various publications. Um, so there was a bit of sort of restatement of the same old thing, but where he sets this all out. Um, he published a book in 1994, claimed that this stuff, some of the stuff he was going to talk about, already happened in 1983. Some of it was
No,
going to
no, it was
happen.
meant to happen in
Oh, sorry, was meant to.
1983. It was then delayed. So by the time that he is writing about Project Bluebeam in 1994, the implementation of Project Bluebeam has been delayed by 11 years, but Sergey claims it's going to be implemented in 1995. It gets further delayed till 1996, and then Sergey thought that it would actually be brought to fruition by the year 2000, but he failed to ever live to see it occur because he dies before the year 2000.
Yes, he does. Now, while I did have a quick flip through the book, I did notice right at the start, but before it actually gets into the text of the stuff that he had, it has a bunch of notes by whoever compiled this book about how he and another journalist who was never actually
Unnamed.
named, Him and this other journalist both died of heart attacks in 1996, along with
Weeks
claims that
apart.
supposedly, weeks apart, supposedly, and then this other journalist was apparently looking into these claims as well, or something. I don't know, but and there are sort of claims that, oh no, they were both in good health and had no history of heart conditions and so on and so forth. That they had in fact been assassinated. Also claims that the Canadian government had kidnapped Mr. Manast's daughter, to try to stop him from investigating Project Bluebeam, which it seemed there seemed to be a bit about. I think I think if you were to look into the life of this guy, there was some stuff going on, because it seemed to be to do with the fact that he wanted to homeschool his children. And when he talks about them being kidnapped from the government, it kind of sounds like the government took his kids away from him because he was teaching them crazy stuff. But that's a little bit of sort of speculation, educated guessing on my part there. But nevertheless, the claim is made that he and this mysterious unnamed journalist were both assassinated by the government to stop this from getting out.
And what were they trying to stop from getting out? Well, let's summarize the project in its 4 steps, because Project Bluebeam, which was meant to be run or is being run by NASA, has 4 particular steps. Step 1: cause the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge by faking earthquakes, which can then reveal new archaeological discoveries that explain to all people the era of all fundamental religious doctrines. 2,
Yeah,
oh,
well,
yeah, sorry.
I want to say this one is interesting because when you read through it, the implication is that the author takes it that current archaeological evidence proves that Christianity is true. And so he's saying what's going to happen is they're going to have these sort of fake earthquakes with their presumably HARP array earthquake machine type things, which is going to unearth the stuff that then proves that all of Christianity is false, which is an interesting position to start from.
Yes, and doesn't really understand much about the archaeological record, given that certainly there are elements of the archaeological record which support certain contentions in Christian history, although admittedly not contentions about the Messiah of Christianity. But a lot of the archaeological record also supports the contentions of a lot of other non Christian cultures.
Yes, yes. I don't know what these archaeological discoveries would have been. Would it be like they uncover a UFO with Jesus's corpse and sitting inside it or something? I don't know. But whatever it was going to be would supposedly be enough to shake the convictions of all religious people of all religions all around the world.
Including the Pope.
Mm. But yes, that's
But
only
that's not
phase
the
one, as you
yeah,
say.
yeah, that's phase
Go
one.
on.
The second step is to put on a gigantic space show wherein 3 dimensional holographic laser projections will be beamed all over the Earth, and these projections will take on the shape of whatever deity is most predominant in the region that can see it, and these projections will speak in all languages. And at the very end of the space show, all of these deities will merge into one god, the Antichrist, which, in conjunction with Soviet mind control technology, will also cause the breakdown of social and religious order. So I'm assuming this is look, some people are not going to have their faith shaken by new archaeological discoveries. So we'll put on a light show for those particular people.
Yes, I guess the archaeological stuff was to soften people up, perhaps. And then yes, so here comes this magical hologram light show, where everybody in the world sees their deities. I don't know what the atheists see, but anyway, yeah, all these deities speak directly to their people, and then at the end of it say, "Ha ha, psych! I was actually this other. All of us were actually this other deity the entire time. We're your real god." P.S. I'm the Antichrist.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke for the atheist, it'll be Richard Dawkins, but Richard Dawkins turning into the Antichrist actually might be a positive career move for him at this stage.
Hmm. Hmm. Not very persuasive either. Giant hologrammatic Richard Dawkins?
I
No,
know. I
thank
mean,
you.
well, that would shake my faith in a
I
lot of
suppose
different
that's
ways.
true. Yep, no,
Yeah.
that's true.
Now,
Okay,
step
stage two,
three
stage three.
is to use extreme low frequency radio waves to project voices into people's heads so they think that God is talking to them. So you might not find archaeological evidence to be persuasive. Maybe you won't even believe the lights in the sky. But once you start hearing God, or in this case, the Antichrist, talking directly to you, then your faith is going to be shaken.
Okay, so it looks like they're sort of ramping things up. I hesitate to ask, what is stage four?
Well, stage four is the culmination of the plan because stage four is the faking of both alien invasions and the rapture, along with other supernatural shenanigans, which will cause so much chaos on Earth that people will accept the New World Order as the governmental structure for the control of humanity for the rest of time.
Right, kind of sounds like the plot at the end of Watchmen, but with extra steps and and
And
more
fewer giant
elaborate
squids.
technological, fewer giant squids. Yes, but I don't know. Maybe a giant squid was going to be among these alien invasions that we're going to get everybody to throw their hands in the air and say, "Ah, oh, the world isn't too much of a mess. Please come and save us, New World Order, who is also the Antichrist, who we now accept as the true divinity," or something.
Yes, something like that.
It all, I have to say, it all sounds a little bit science fiction.
It does ever so slightly seem like a plot of a science fiction show you may have watched in the late 80s or early 90s. Our notes from 2015 point out that a lot of this sounds like the plot of the 1991 Star Trek episode Devil's Due. And it's kind of interesting because not long before Sergei gave his first presentation on Project Bluebeam, a book about Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, the original series, and the kind of creative mind behind the first few seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation, included a book was released which included Roddenberry's original ideas for this particular story. And so it does seem a little David Icke here, in that Sergei seems to be following some pop culture trends here and then going, oh, this is a revelation of what they want to do.
Hmm. So that's the gist of it. Then that's the four part plan. We're going to use holograms and also mind control technology to fake some sort of alien incursion, some sort of divine revelation, some sort of world shattering event, so that this new world order can swoop in and take control. Now, I said I found, looking up notes for this episode, to see what new information was out there, that the full text of Project Bluebeam is out there. You can find it on the Internet Archive. I didn't bother to read the whole thing, but you did.
I unfortunately did sit down and read all of it. It is very repetitive. So you end up going, oh, I've read that bit before, I've read that bit before. So it's not a hard read, it's just a complete waste of your time read.
Yes. As I say, from my flip through, it seemed like a bunch of articles that presumably were on the same topic that he'd published in different places. But is
And
there
in a
anything
few
in?
cases, the replication of articles he didn't write, which he took to be evidence for his particular thesis. So it's not all of his own work. Some of it is, here's an article I found in the Washington Post which supports one of my contentions. I'll reprint it here.
Hmm. So, I mean, is there anything interesting above and beyond the four-step program?
So the thing to note about his argument is it's one very big slippery slope, in that it's a lot of, if this could occur, then as a consequence, this thing might occur. So there's a lot of discussion of, well, if we have the technology to put on a big space show, then the consequence of that show might be this particular thing here. So I was spending time going, but if we're following the slippery slope here, these things which don't even seem vaguely likely at the beginning seem incredibly unlikely towards the end. So as an argument, it's not particularly convincing unless you already believe the conclusion. The conclusion being that the kind of technology he's talking about does exist, and there is an intention by people involved in the New Age movement to use it to eradicate Christianity and bring in a new world order. And there's a kind of oddness to this, because I was trying to work out, why did we talk about this back in 2015? There's nothing in the notes which explains why we were inspired to talk about it, but I know why we're talking about it now.
And is that because, well, okay, actually, maybe take a slight step back. I'm assuming it's about technology because the original thing leaned hard into the holograms aspect of it all, because holograms were quite cool in the 90s, and there were some interesting advances of them in the early 2000s. They're not such a big deal. When was the last time you heard anything hologrammy recently? You know, they used to. There was.
I mean, the last thing I remember as being notable was it Ye made a hologram of Kim Kardashian's dad for her birthday party? And I'm fairly sure that was 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, there was something like that. I remember that in like election coverage or something in the States, they had their quote unquote holograms of sort of people on the ground in certain locations appearing as what was supposedly a hologram in studio. At the time when we wrote about this in 2015, there was the whole hologrammatic Tupac Shakur, which again wasn't a hologram, was the whole Culpepper's ghost projecting onto a piece of glass thing. There'd also been Hatsune Miku, the Japanese CGI pop star who did concerts as a sort of a hologram thing. But less of a thing these days. What is more of a thing these days, of course, is drones. And we've seen those big fancy drone light show things they put on, where you get a coordinated array of drones all flying around in unison, making different patterns and stuff in the sky.
I mean,
So
our apartment here in Guangzhou is right beside the Olympic Stadium, and for Western New Year, so the beginning, well, technically the end, well, for in New Zealand time, the beginning of this year, China time, the end of last year, there was a very spectacular drone display going on above the stadium, and the really complex three-dimensional images they were able to present and then get them to kind of transform in real time was really quite spectacular. So yeah, drones are doing some remarkable stuff. However, I
yeah,
wouldn't be mistaking those things for godheads.
no. But then, of course, the big news in technology for the past few years, of course, has been AI and large
Yes, it
language
has.
models. So that comes into his writing a bit as well, does it?
Well, yeah, so there's actually a number of factors as to why I think we're talking about it now. And by we, I mean both on the podcast and why people online are chattering about Project Bluebeam. The first is that, as we talked about in a previous episode, there's a conspiracy theory going on, particularly in the US, that a lot of, and I'm putting in quotes here, top scientists have either gone missing or died recently. And people are asking to connect the dots between people with high ranking security clearances and disappearances or deaths. As we talked about in that previous episode, this actually might not be the issue it appears to be, in part because, yes, there have been a number of scientists who have died or gone missing recently, but we just don't know how anomalous those disappearances or deaths are compared to sciences dying or disappearing generally over time anyway. So people are focusing on, oh, these scientists disappeared or died. Ipso facto, there must be some kind of plot. And our question was, yes, but is that anomalous? Is that an unusually low or high number of scientists to die or go missing? What's the base rate of scientists in the US dying or going missing? Without that data, you really can't make any particular claim. But a lot of the Reddit threads, which are talking about Project Bluebeam, are kind of predicated on, oh, part of the Project Bluebeam playbook is that NASA is having to cover up what it's about to do. So it was eliminating scientists back in the 90s and early 2000s. Now we're seeing the same thing. That must mean Project Bluebeam is about to come online. And this is then linked to people going, and look, people laughed at Sergey with his claims back those days, but people also laughed at the idea of there being elite pedophile rings operating at the highest echelons of Western society. And it turns out there really were. So his laughable hypothesis back in the 90s actually might not, probably should not have been laughed at the time, because well, I mean, we laughed at other things and they turned out to be true. And then, as you pointed out, the third thing is that part of the plot to get people to give up on religion and join the New World Order comes out of Sergei's discussion of the idea that the conspiracy is centered on creating artificial thought and artificial communication. And we now live in the era of the LLM. And when Sergey's talking about what NASA is going to do, he's talking about NASA stealing people's private information to then generate intelligences that will then replace the ability of people to think, because they will defer to those intelligences instead. And lo and behold, what are we seeing in the age of LLM but companies doing exactly the same thing?
Yes, so it seems that old Project Bluebeam has sort of just been bubbling along in the background this whole time, and current developments in technology and also sort of world events have had people saying, "Hey, look, this is it. This is more evidence of all this stuff going on." So when I was having a look to see, okay, we're gonna revisit the idea of Project Bluebeam. What is there to say that's new? Apart, dug out our old notes from 11 years ago, and then okay, well let's have a look. Let's see what's going on today. And I was quite surprised. Just a simple search for Project Bluebeam showed up a bunch of articles, like recent articles from this year. I think we even found one from this month, saying of what people are saying about Project Bluebeam. So there have been things such as the one from this month was relating to the latest release from the Pentagon of their sort of UFO information, which I know we've mentioned. I don't know that we went to any great detail because I don't think there was really a lot there. It was just a bunch more of, here's a weird thing some pilots saw that we aren't quite sure what it was, but certainly wasn't alien autopsies and pictures of government officials shaking hands with little green men. But nevertheless, this release got people talking about Project Bluebeam. According to this article, following the UFO files release, some social media users speculated that the disclosures were connected to it and meant to distract the public from other issues, including the Epstein files and tensions involving Iran, which is another branch to the conspiracy theories as well. Even if you don't think it's genuine, they're still doing it. They're still putting it out there to distract us from the other real things that they're doing. But yes, whoever wrote this article had done a quick survey of social medias. They found one person on Facebook writing, "Project Bluebeam coming. What you all think?" Someone on X/Twitter said of all this, TLDR, Project Bluebeam, since you're not buying the half-assed effort for Hunter virus. So again, which we haven't even mentioned at all, but the latest Hunter virus on cruise ships, and there's been a bit of a bowler running around as well, which some people seem to think has been them trying to talk up a pandemic, but that hasn't been working. So now let's bring out the UFOs and bring back Project Bluebeam. And again, someone else on Twitter posted, Project Bluebeam makes its debut. Obviously another distraction from Epstein pedo files. No wonder dude said have fun and enjoy. So it's interesting that the the comments that they chose to highlight in this article were more people saying that this stuff is a deliberate nod towards Project Bluebeam, but B, it's just a distraction from the other dodgy stuff that's going on, which does actually feel somewhat of this time, I guess.
Yes, it's a conspiracy about a conspiracy, or a conspiracy theory to explain away another conspiracy theory.
But then, yeah, just going a little bit further back, there was an article related to drone sightings from 2024. Was that when I remember there was a bit of a drone scare a few years ago? So this might have been that when people was it New Jersey, somewhere in America, people were insisting that there were these people kept seeing drones flying across the place, and there appeared to be no. They weren't sort of on any sort of official purpose, and so the suggestion was maybe it's foreign nations sending drones over to spy on us or something. Although, as I recall, it didn't really seem like much of anything at all. But I'm guessing this was around that time, and so in 2024, December of 2024, in fact, this article was, it mentioned that apparently Alex Jones was talking about Project Bluebeam at that time. They sort of, in this article from December 2024, they said Alex Jones has been talking about Project Bluebeam and relating it to this drone stuff. And in relation to all the drone business, apparently, according to this article, on Saturday, which again would have been sometime in December of 2024, Donald Trump supporting celebrity Roseanne Barr posted on X, formerly Twitter, "Now you see why I mention Project Bluebeam every week on my podcast." Her post had garnered over 2 million views by Sunday. And I mean, I know Roseanne Barr had gone full MAGA and was very, very sort of right-wing stuff. I wasn't aware that she had a podcast, but that doesn't surprise me at all. And I was not aware that she had been talking about stuff like Project Bluebeam. I assumed she would have just been all anti-vax and pro-Trump.
She had a very interesting interview with Alex Jones where it's quite clear that their energy doesn't work together at all well, but they were pretending to get along because they were ostensibly on the same side. It was quite terrible and also enjoyable to listen to in equal measure.
Yes, am I right in thinking that she had a Netflix special that was actually titled "Cancel This"?
Oh, that sounds plausible, but I
I'm
might
fairly
just be
certain
thinking
that's
that
what it's called.
yeah.
That was,
I mean, we'll just never know. We'll never
we'll never
know.
know. It's sitting in front of devices that access the entirety of human knowledge, but there's no way for us to know that particular fact.
No, just impossible. Just impossible.
Yeah. But yeah, then again, this was like, this is the first page of results that I saw. We had an article from April of this year, which is another from IFL Science. Another basically, hey, Project Bluebeam, here's an interesting thing, and it's a little bit. It does label it as a 1990s conspiracy theory. And as it says in the intro, in the byline of this thing, the ideas in this particularly juicy conspiracy theory were considered impossible when it was first proposed, but they're broad enough that they get new life on the internet every now and then. And it's again just sort of a summary of the whole thing of basically everything we've talked about in this podcast so far. What that guy originally said, how it was. Oh, that was one thing we didn't bring up. It was what was meant to have started in 1983, which was when the Age of Aquarius was supposed to start. That was the original one. But yeah, it goes through. This one goes through the various steps 1, 2, 3, 4 that we've already talked about. But then it has a whole section on why has it stuck around so long, and it goes through the various reasons why. So their particular view, the view of this article, written by Dr. Russell Moule, he says one of the reasons why Project Bluebeam is successful is that it deals with phenomena that are A, plausible, and B, easily understandable. I would dispute that if you read it in any detail, but nevertheless, as he says, firstly, the rapid development of technologies, especially with the speed at which AI is developing now, could make someone worry that there could be some easily choreographed large-scale deception at some point. Secondly, although Monash makes multiple references to the religions of the world, it is clear he was mostly concerned with Christians. His conspiracy theory taps into a pervasive apocalyptic concern for people who are already expecting some end time scenario to occur. At the same time, this idea hits at the heart of the growing distrust of institutions, expertise, and authority. It therefore accommodates other conspiracy theories that are suspicious of scientific achievements, such as anti vaccine groups or the powers of specific organizations like flat earthers. And this comes at the end of his article, which he concludes, but there's no evidence to verify pretty much anything Monash claims. Decades later, our technology is much more advanced than it was in his day, and yet we still have no sign of this great end time nor any of the terrifying technological abilities he prophesied. Nevertheless, its broad nature and wide-scale suspicions make it easily mutable, which is likely why we'll see variations of it emerging in the years to come. Which sounds about right, really.
Yeah, there's an interesting aspect. I was trying to work out why, if you think Project Bluebeam is real, why it's been delayed quite substantially from 1983. And Sergey is actually quite frank about this. He doesn't know why it's been delayed, it just has been. So he has government insiders who keep talking to him about the project, and they can't explain the delay, just that it has been delayed. Now, I don't know about you, Josh, but 1983 and the current year was at least 10 years ago. And it
It
just
might
seems
even
very
be
odd, very
11.
odd that it's that in the last 10 years nothing has happened, especially
Mm.
given how much has actually happened. Because I mean, I know in 1983 we all know that objectively it was 10 years ago, but in many respects it feels more like 40 years ago.
It does a little bit, almost like 43 years ago.
Oh
It's
no, I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I would not go
sorry,
that far.
sorry, sorry. Didn't mean to overstep. Sorry. But yeah, it is interesting. It sounds like that sort of thing of just sort of extrapolating from what you know about technology at the moment. So it's like we know holograms are a thing. I mean, holograms have been a thing for quite a while in one form or another.
Yeah, I mean, they
Um,
were a thing for a hot minute, and then they just stopped being a thing.
Yeah. So it's you can understand someone saying, okay, well, this is the technology as it stands at the moment, but you can imagine that getting a little bit better, a bit more advanced, bit fancy. Maybe the sort of thing that the government already has and is sitting on, they have the advanced version of this technology that we only have the crude version of, and maybe they could do this wacky stuff with it. And so then again, you fast forward to the current day, well, it is interesting, actually, to see the fact that when people see lights in the sky nowadays, they are more likely to say enemy nation's drone than they are to say UFO, when in fact we're fairly certain that a lot of UFO sightings in the past were actually military drones of the sort that did not exist, that weren't available to the public at the time. But yeah, knowing how drones work and seeing the sort of displays that you talked about, again, you can just do the thing of, okay, well, that's what we know they can do. But assuming again that the government is sitting on more advanced technology than we see, you can then say, oh, well, so then then they could use hologram projecting drones like in that Spider-Man movie, and just make any pictures they want appear and convince us of anything. So yeah, it
And
does sort of
I
like
mean, this
something.
does.
Yeah, it does seem like the way it sort of relies on the concept of technology being a little bit bigger than a little bit better than we think it is, means it can nicely adapt to sort of whichever direction technology goes.
Yeah, and that got me thinking Project Bluebeam is what a lot of people think is a kind of typical speculative conspiracy theory. And I think then a lot of people assume all conspiracy theories are of this particular nature. Because this is a conspiracy theory which is based upon the if this technology did exist, and there was a particular intention by people in power, then the following is a possibility. So it's a very speculative hypothesis. If this technology exists, then you could do this thing. And if you can do this thing and people want to use it for their own particular agenda, then this would be the consequence of those particular actions. And because a lot of it rests upon going, the technology is more advanced than you think, then the level of speculation becomes really quite high. Then you have the other part, which I find fascinating, and this is the way evidence is used by Sergey. So Sergey is talking with a lot of what he takes to be government insiders who are giving him evidence for the existence of Project Bluebeam. And this is interesting because, on one hand, you might just think, oh, he's lying. He's just making up these insiders to provide evidence for his conjecture. These are unnamed sources, and we never found out who they are, so they might not exist. But the thing is, they might have existed. And they might have existed in a sense that there were people that Sergei talked to off the record, and Sergei simply misinterpreted what they told him. So I'm thinking here about Martin Butler when he talks about Bob Tizard and Bob Tizard's apparent admission about hidden tunnels inside North Head back in Devonport, New Zealand. And when you look at what Bob Tizard said, it simply says, well, look, I have been told there are inaccessible places on North Head, which Martin then interprets to be there must be a giant tunnel complex within North Head. So he's interpreting something he's been told as meaning something completely different. But of course, the other possibility is that the people that he takes to be government insiders aren't actually insiders at all and are having a little bit of fun with him by going, "Oh yeah, I used to work for the CIA. Yeah, I can tell you about what the CIA do. Do you know the CIA keep unicorns in a leprechaun-built tank in the bottom of Area 51? Not many people know that. You should probably write that down. Are you writing that down? I hope you publish that soon."
Mm. Or if not actively malicious, maybe delusional also. Maybe people who've made the jump from here's my theory of how it could happen to actually yes it did happen, and yes I need to get the word out and tell people that I know it is because I'm actually a secret government insider or something. Or the whole government LARPing thing that we saw around the start of QAnon, which um, seemed to be, we all started because they had this person claiming to be an insider in the first Trump administration, leaking this obscure information. Again, it could be, it could be some of that.
Or it could be a
Uh,
General Flynn, someone who really does seem to believe the strange things that he says and
yeah.
was a top ranking member of the military brass in the US Army.
Mm.
But I mean, but my
So
my my bigger point here is that if these insiders did exist, why were they leaking only to this one guy? You would think if you're trying to warn the world about the existence of a gigantic plot to engineer a religious conversion to Satanism and bring about a new world order, you might slip that information to the Washington Post.
yeah. I mean, obviously, you can tell a story about how I tried to give it to the authorities, but they're all too close-minded. They all thought I was a crank. But this guy believed me, or
But
yeah.
even in that situation, why is it only this guy? Why aren't you
Well,
also
yes,
leaking this to news sources in, say, this at that time, the remnants of the Soviet Union, where they will want some kind of PR coup over the decadent West?
yes. No, you're right. It doesn't seem. It never seems like they tried to get it out there to any other source. But yeah, I don't think that's unique to the
Oh
case of
no,
Project Bluebeam at all. But
but it
yes,
is
yeah,
it is
it
one
is
of
a thing
those
you
things
see.
that does make you
Mm,
think. One of the reasons why I am doubtful that Project Bluebeam exists is that the singular source for this information rather undercuts the urgency of people leaking information to the press. We should be seeing a lot of the stuff, including other journalists going, "Oh yeah, I mean, I I heard about this as well, but I thought it was nonsense. You'd think there'd be people chiming in with the, oh yes, I've heard the same thing from other sources, and yet
Hmm.
Sergey appears to be the only source, or at least one of very few sources these people were leaking information to.
Hmm. Yes. So that is Project Bluebeam, now and then, and earlier then. So I was quite happy to see all this. I thought it was nice, seeing the name pop up in our last episode was a nice little sort of blast from the past thing. But to go and have a look around and see that it's still alive and kicking and adapting itself to modern technology like some sort of horrible disease, I thought was quite nice.
Yeah, and the fact that it's actually leveraging real horrors in our world, such as the development of LLMs, is very interesting.
Hmm. So there you go. It was I do, we, like we've done a few of these back to the conspiracy things where we've gone and looked back at topics that we've covered in the past. But I think of all of them, this is the one where it really seemed like that old conspiracy. Like a lot of them were sort of historical things that are just things that have happened, whereas this one it did seem different in that it was still alive and kicking today and in a new form and sort of keep staying abreast of current affairs and developments in technology. It was quite cheering, quite heartwarming to see this little conspiracy theory made good.
So, made good? That seems like a
Yes.
weird phrase to use.
Well, it's done well for itself. That's a phrase. Someone's made good. I'm not making it up. I swear I'm not making it up. It's a
Yeah,
thing
but
that's a thing that people
I
say.
just feel the intent behind those words is giving a slightly different portrayal of the conspiracy theory itself. When you say conspiracy theory makes good, you kind of assume it's becoming true or has become more plausible.
Well, no, but it's maintained, I guess, popularity. It hasn't just drifted off into obscurity. It's still out there. People are still talking about it. They're still talking about it. Damn it! It could have been a star. It will be again. Just needs the right break. I don't.
You heard it
I'm losing
here. Josh is Sergey Monast or Serge
Serge.
Monash. Well, we just don't know, and we'll never
No, we
know.
don't know. And he's dead, so he can't complain to us,
Unless
as far
he's
as we
the
know.
ultimate representation of the
Mm,
Antichrist when Project Bluebeam comes to fruition.
mm. So that is it for this episode about Project Bluebeam. This little walk down memory lane and then diverting into present day street. I'm not having much luck with my metaphors today, so I'm just going to draw things to a close. That is the end of this episode, but there will be a bonus episode for our beloved patrons and them alone. We're going to talk some podcasty stuff. We're going to talk some local conspiracies, and we're gonna talk internet happenings. And we do it all for you, our patrons, and not for you, other person listening who isn't our patron.
But
But
you
if you want
can
to become
become our
a patron,
patron with absolute ease. If you go to patreon.com and look up the podcaster's guide to the conspiracy, you will find our Patreon page. And on that page, you can join for as little as $1 a month. Actually, it might even be even just one currency unit in your region a month. And that unlocks bonus content. Now, if you subscribe at a slightly higher level, there's also things like stickers, mugs, hoodies, and the like, but you can just get the bonus material for a tiny, tiny donation. Although, admittedly, in this era of high cost of living, maybe that small donation is too much. And if you're listening to these main episodes, we love you nonetheless. It's just that we could love you more. We
we
really could
could
love you a
a little
lot
bit,
more.
a
A
little bit more.
whole lot more. I mean,
I'm
I
sure.
am
Yep.
talking a gaping more of love.
Yep. I'm not, but that's okay. So there we go. End of an episode. We've plugged the Patreon. I don't see that there's anything left for anyone to do, really, but say goodbye.
Yes, in the words of the Antichrist, good luck to you all.
Nice guy, that Antichrist. The Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy features Josh Addison and Associate Professor M.R.X. Dentith. Our producers are a mysterious cabal of conspirators known as Tom, Philip, and another who is so mysterious that they remain anonymous. You can contact us electronically via podcastconspiracy@gmail.com or join our Patreon and get access to our Discord server. Or don't, I'm not your mum. And remember, he who laughs last is standing behind you right now.